I had always heard that men never grow old, but I never truly believed it until I married one. My husband was 60 years old, his hair was fully white, his skin creased with time, and his voice heavy with age. And yet, on our wedding night, when he entered the room with unwavering strength, my illusions about age shattered completely. He didn't speak much, he didn't need to. He just looked at me with calm, calculated eyes and reached for me. I froze. I had married him willingly, but only because of what I'd seen. A video. A scandalous clip of this same old man with one of his previous wives, a video I shouldn't have watched, but I did, and it stirred something inside me. Curiosity, temptation, madness. I wanted to know how a man of 60 could still overpower young women, why his name sent whispers through the neighborhood, and what happened to the brides who came before me. He removed my clothes himself, one layer at a time, his hands firm but not cruel. I curled into myself, breathless and ashamed. Not because I was afraid, but because I suddenly realized this wasn't a fantasy. It was real. The man people called the old lion was now my husband. And he wasn't weak. Not even close. That night, I understood what the other brides might have gone through, why some women collapsed on their wedding nights. His power was terrifying. He didn't stop. And at some point, I blacked out. When I opened my eyes the next morning, I felt as if I'd returned from war. But my story didn't start there. It started with someone else, my sister. She was the one who first entered that house. She worked as a maid in his mansion. She was beautiful, smart, and kind, and he had proposed to her before he ever saw me. She laughed it off at first. After all, what young girl would willingly marry a 60-year-old man with a cursed reputation? But then he made an offer she couldn't resist. The mansion, his wealth, a future free from struggle. All of it would be hers if she said yes. And she did. I was horrified. She was supposed to be the responsible one, the smart one. But she was also tired of poverty, tired of renting rooms and scrubbing floors. She told us this was her chance, that this marriage would change all our lives. But it didn't. It ended hers. She died on her wedding night, the same way all his wives had, and that's when my story truly began. I wasn't just grieving my sister, I was drowning in questions. I had to know what really happened inside that house, and for that, I went back, not just as her sister, but as the next bride in line. My sister's decision wasn't made overnight. It was years of hardship, poverty, and sacrifice that pushed her into the arms of a man we didn't understand. She was the eldest in our family. After our father passed away, she became the sole provider. She worked endlessly, cleaning homes, running errands, coming home exhausted each night. Her hands were always cracked from cleaning chemicals, her feet swollen from standing all day. Yet she never complained. When she got the job at the mansion, things started to change. The pay was better, and the work, while heavy, came with respect. The man she worked for, this wealthy old man, treated her kindly. He never spoke harshly, never touched her inappropriately, and after some months, he proposed. She told us about it one evening, returning home glowing with excitement. "He asked me to marry him," she said as she dropped her bag on the floor. Our mother looked up in shock. I stood still, waiting to hear if she was joking. "You can't be serious," I said. "He's 60, you're barely 22, and you told me yourself every girl who's married him has died." She didn't deny it, but her expression didn't change. "He's offered to transfer the mansion to my name. Everything. We'll never have to worry again." I was stunned. What good is a mansion if you're not alive to live in it? She waved me off with a half smile. "I'm not stupid. I've seen nothing dangerous about him. Maybe the other girls had health issues. Maybe they weren't careful. I'm not like them." She was convinced that she would survive what others hadn't, convinced that her fate would be different. Our mother was hesitant, but silent. Perhaps even she had begun to hope. We had spent our lives in rented houses, scraping together meals. The thought of finally owning something, of being free from daily survival, was blinding. I tried to stop her. I begged her not to do it. But she was determined. She called it one sacrifice for a lifetime of peace. She promised to bring us into the mansion with her. She dreamed of throwing me a grand wedding once she was settled. So the marriage happened. She wore a simple dress. He looked like any other old man, tall with graying hair and a strangely warm smile. There was no music, no guests, just papers signed and vows spoken. We sent her off that night, and I swear, as she left the house, it felt like a piece of my soul went with her. I didn't sleep that night. I kept walking in circles, heart racing, praying to be wrong. But by morning, the phone rang. And the scream that tore through me was one I never knew I had inside. My sister was dead. The scream that left my mouth wasn't just pain. It was rage, disbelief, and helplessness all twisted into one. My sister was gone. Just like the others. The same pattern. Married one night, buried the next. A life exchanged for promises that turned to ash. We hadn't even prepared ourselves for the worst, and now we were facing it. Our mother broke completely. She collapsed onto the floor, whispering my sister's name over and over, as if it would bring her back. She had been our only breadwinner, our shield from the world, and now we were alone. Two grieving women in a house too small to contain our sorrow. The man, the husband, the one they now called the widower yet again, handled all the funeral arrangements. He brought in people we didn't know. He wept loudly in front of everyone, his eyes red, his face hollow. But I wasn't buying it. There was something too practiced in the way he mourned, too convenient in how quickly everything was handled. Her body, her burial, the papers. It was like he had done this before, because he had. After the burial, he came to us. He sat with us, speaking softly, his tone laced with grief. "I loved your sister," he said, holding his head in his hands. "I don't know why this keeps happening. The doctors say it was a heart attack." I looked him dead in the eyes. "You told that to the families of the last 5 women too, didn't you?" He didn't reply. Instead, he reached into his pocket and handed my mother an envelope. It was filled with money, a lot of it. Then he turned to me. "I know this won't bring her back," he said, his voice trembling. "Asais, but I won't leave you alone. If you want, you can come work in the mansion. Take her place. I'll pay you fairly. You'll be safe." Safe. That word echoed in my mind. I should have screamed at him. I should have thrown the envelope back in his face, but I didn't, because deep down, I knew what I had to do. If I wanted answers, real answers, I had to step into the same world that had swallowed my sister. I accepted the offer. My mother hesitated, but eventually agreed. We had no other option. The rent was due, the kitchen was nearly empty, and part of her believed the man was simply cursed, not a criminal. I didn't believe in curses, I believed in patterns, and this one was too clear to ignore. So I packed my bag and walked through the same doors my sister had entered before me. But unlike her, I wasn't walking in blind. I was going in with eyes wide open, and I was ready to uncover the truth, even if it destroyed me. The mansion looked exactly as my sister had described, grand, cold, and unnervingly quiet. It stood like a monument of secrets, its white walls too clean, its silence too loud. As I stepped through its doors, I felt the weight of those who had entered before me. My sister, the other wives, all of them young, all of them gone. The man who had buried them all was standing in the hallway, offering a tired smile. "You'll get used to it here," he said. I didn't smile back. He assigned me my sister's old responsibilities, cleaning the rooms, maintaining the decor, arranging fresh flowers in the halls. The mansion was so large it echoed, and each step I took seemed to trail behind with whispers from the past. But I wasn't there just to clean. I was watching, listening, learning. The man was polite, respectful even. He never raised his voice, never came too close. To any outsider, he appeared as a model employer, soft-spoken, grieving, lonely. But I couldn't shake the unease. Every hallway I swept, every shelf I dusted, I kept expecting to uncover something, a clue, a slip, anything. I began to treat cleaning like a search mission. I opened drawers slowly, lifted rugs subtly, checked closets for hidden compartments. I paid close attention to his bedroom, especially his bedside drawers, the wardrobes, and the way everything was always too neatly arranged. I found nothing, and that scared me more. Because evil rarely looks like evil. Sometimes it wears a tailored suit and speaks gently. One day, as I was dusting near the staircase, I overheard a conversation between 2 older staff members. Both had served him for years. They whispered about how unfortunate he was. 6 wives, one said, shaking his head. All gone before their time. He's cursed, I tell you. Not evil, just cursed. The other nodded solemnly. He treats everyone well, never harmed a soul, but there's darkness following him. Maybe someone did black magic on him. It made me wonder, was everyone so blinded by his wealth and composure that they truly believed these were just coincidences? I didn't. There were too many deaths, too many patterns, and one single connection, him. And then, one afternoon, while cleaning the storeroom, I found him already inside, sitting with an open photo album. His eyes were glassy, a faint smile on his lips. He was staring at old photographs. "Come in," he said gently when he noticed me. "Look at these. My misfortunes." I stepped closer, cautiously. Inside the album were photos of all his previous wives. Young, glowing, full of life. All gone now. The final image took my breath away. It was my sister. She was wearing a dress that belonged to me, a dress I had worn only once, weeks before she died. That picture had never been taken in our home. He had captured it before she even knew he'd propose, and suddenly, I realized. He had been watching long before the wedding. I stared at the photo in disbelief. My sister smiling in that dress, a dress she had borrowed from me, worn casually one afternoon long before she ever agreed to marry him. Yet here it was, printed, preserved, and tucked into an album among his other dead wives. The image wasn't staged. It wasn't even framed. It had been taken in secret, probably without her knowledge. And that terrified me more than anything else. Why had he taken that photo? Had he already chosen her as a target before proposing? Had he been planning it from the very beginning? I looked up at him, searching for answers, but he was lost in his memories, flipping through the pages with gentle fingers and sad eyes. "They were all so beautiful," he said softly, as if to himself. "I only ever wanted love." He spoke like a broken man, and for a moment I almost believed it. "Maybe I've been cursed," he continued. "Someone did something to me. Every time I fall in love, death comes for them." His voice cracked. It was convincing. Painfully so, but I couldn't forget what I saw in that album. That single photo told me everything I needed to know. He wasn't cursed. He was deliberate. And I was living in the home of a predator who hunted through kindness and grieved with calculation. I continued working quietly over the next few days, never showing my suspicion. I cleaned, I cooked, I served tea while my mind raced through the puzzle I was trapped inside. And then, just as the house began to feel too calm, a new storm entered. He brought another girl home. She was young, maybe 22, just like my sister. She wore bright clothes and a hesitant smile. Her eyes searched the mansion like it was too grand to be real. She didn't know what she was walking into. He introduced her to the staff with pride. "She's a guest," he said. "Treat her like family." But I knew better. He had used that word before. Family. She wasn't a guest. She was next. That evening, I watched him set the dining table himself. He served her food, laughed at her jokes, leaned forward as she spoke. He told her he was lonely, that he wanted companionship. And then he said it, the same promise he had made to my sister. "If we marry, this mansion will be yours. Everything I own, I'll share with you." She blushed. "Are you sure?" He nodded, his hand brushing hers. "I'm tired of living alone." I stood in the shadows, watching from the kitchen doorway. It was happening again. The script, the offer, the trap, it was all playing out like clockwork, and I knew this girl would not live to see her second day as a bride, unless I stopped it. This time, I wouldn't be too late. This time, I was ready to fight back. 2 days later, he married her. It was all so familiar now, the same promises, the same quiet wedding, and the same eerie calm that followed. She entered the mansion as a bride, glowing with hope, unaware that her story was already written by someone else. But this time, things were different. This time, I was prepared. The day before the wedding, I carefully installed a hidden camera in his bedroom. It was tiny, buried inside the carved panel of the wardrobe, angled just right to capture everything that would happen. I told myself that no matter how painful, I had to watch. I had to know what had really happened to my sister and to all the other girls. The night passed slowly. I didn't sleep. My hands trembled with anticipation and fear. I kept replaying every moment of the day, how he smiled while serving her dinner, how he looked at her during the wedding rituals. He didn't just play the role of a groom. He played the role of a loving man so well, even I sometimes wondered if I was wrong. But by morning, the truth arrived again. The mansion fell silent. The staff began whispering, and within hours, the news broke. She was dead, another tragedy, another young wife buried under the weight of mystery. The man cried again, just like before, but the tears didn't move me this time. Because now I had footage. That night, after everyone had returned to their routines and the mansion had quieted, I slipped the camera from its hiding place and took it home with me. I locked my room, plugged in the device, and hit play. And what I saw shattered me. He had undressed her gently, whispered sweet things to her, told her how beautiful she was. And then, without hesitation, he gave her a drink, just like he had offered my sister. She drank it, smiled, unaware. Minutes later, her limbs grew weak. She fell onto the bed, unable to move. He began taking pictures of her, lifeless but still breathing, one after another. Then he made a call, calm, cold, unforgiving. "She's unconscious," he said. "I'll bring her to the drop point. Make sure payment is ready." I couldn't breathe. It wasn't black magic. It wasn't a curse. It was a business. He drugged them, paralyzed them, sold them. And I had only seen half the truth. If I wanted to expose him, if I wanted to know what truly happened after that call, I would have to do something terrifying. I would have to become his next bride, willingly. Because the answers lay not in suspicion, but in experience. After watching the footage, I could no longer live in doubt. The old man wasn't cursed. He wasn't grieving. He was running a system, targeting young, poor girls under the guise of marriage and selling them the moment they lost consciousness. Every wedding night was just a transaction. Every promise a lie. And now I had seen it with my own eyes. But to prove it, to catch him red-handed and stop this horror, I had to do more than watch. I had to become the next name in his book. I knew he wouldn't pick me easily. I wasn't as beautiful as the others. I wasn't new to him. I was already part of the house. But I had one advantage. I knew how he thought. I had seen his type. And I could become exactly what he wanted. So I changed. I started dressing more boldly. I left my scarf behind. I wore colors that clung to me. I softened my voice, smiled more, walked closer. I touched his arm during conversations, laughed at his jokes, always present, always watching. At first, he didn't notice. He remained distant, polite, quiet. But 15 days into my plan, I saw the shift. He looked at me longer. His eyes lingered. One evening, as I was arranging the flowers in the hallway, he stopped behind me. "You remind me of her," he said softly. "Your sister." I turned slowly. "I'm stronger than she was," I said with a hint of challenge in my voice. He smiled. That night, he called me to his room. He didn't touch me. He simply sat across from me and poured 2 glasses of tea. "You've seen my life," he said. "You know my pain. I don't want to be alone anymore. I could be with any woman, even without marriage. But I don't believe in sin. That's why I ask. Will you marry me?" My heart was pounding, but I had waited for this moment. "Yes," I whispered. "I'll marry you." He smiled like a man who had just found peace. "In return," he said, "this mansion will be yours." I nodded. I wasn't thinking about the house. I was thinking about survival. I knew the drink would come. I knew the pictures would follow. I knew the call would be made. But this time, I would be ready. This time, I wouldn't swallow the poison. This time, I would play dead and expose the devil behind the mask. The wedding was quiet, just like the ones before. No guests, no music, no celebration, just signatures, ceremonial words, and a silent walk into a room where so many others had gone and never returned. As I entered the bedroom that night, dressed as his bride, I felt like I was walking into my own grave. But I wasn't afraid. Not anymore. I had already rehearsed this moment 100 times in my mind. This time, the story would end differently. He smiled at me as he handed me a glass of juice. I smiled back. My heart was pounding, but I kept my hand steady. The drink was the key. I couldn't refuse it. He'd suspect. So I pretended to take a sip, then turned my head and poured it discreetly behind me into a folded towel I'd placed earlier on the table. He didn't notice. He reached for me. Piece by piece, he removed my dress, complimenting me with the same rehearsed words he had used on the others. "You're so beautiful. Let me keep this moment forever." Then came the camera, his phone. He began taking pictures of me, just like he did with the last girl, just like he did with my sister, and I let him. I lay still, breathing carefully, eyes closed. Then I made my move. I pretended to lose consciousness. My breathing slowed. My body went limp. He leaned over me, checked my pulse, and smiled. Not with love, not with concern, but with cold satisfaction. Then he made the call. "She's out," he whispered. "Same location, bring the vehicle, and don't forget, payment on the spot. I don't want a repeat of last time." He chuckled. "This one's smart, strong too. It took longer for the drug to kick in." I was still, not a blink, not a breath too deep. He continued, "I'll get her to the location. Just like before, you handle the rest." There it was, the final confirmation. He wasn't cursed, he was a trafficker, and now I was the bait in my own trap. But I wasn't alone. Earlier that day, I had already sent a full message to a police officer I had connected with secretly. My location was being tracked. A tiny phone was hidden in my dress. Everything he was saying now, was being recorded. And the moment he lifted me in his arms and called the staff to help him prepare for the funeral, the countdown began. The man thought I was just another lifeless girl, but I was wide awake. And he had no idea his final game had already begun. He carried me like I was a corpse, limp, weightless, silent. I stayed still, holding my breath when necessary, my mind racing through every possibility. I had counted on timing. I had counted on the phone still transmitting my location. Now I could only hope that the police were watching. He placed me into a vehicle, an old ambulance, empty except for one man who took the wheel. As the door shut behind me, I heard him speak to the driver. "She'll wake in 2 or 3 hours. Until then, she's yours to handle. Get her out of the city. Once she's sold, I'll take my cut." Sold. The word echoed like thunder in my head. The vehicle began to move. I kept my body lifeless, but inside I was preparing. I had already alerted the police hours earlier. If everything went as planned, they'd be tracing the signal right now. After what felt like forever, the ambulance pulled into an abandoned warehouse on the edge of the city. As the man got out to make arrangements inside, I slipped my hand to the tiny phone tucked in my undergarment and tapped the emergency signal. Minutes later, sirens. They came fast. Before the man could react, police stormed in, guns raised, voices shouting. The man tried to flee but was immediately tackled and cuffed. I sat up, breathing heavily, finally able to let go of the act. Dozens of girls were found inside, some barely conscious, others terrified, all trapped in a nightmare they couldn't escape. The police moved quickly, rescuing them, comforting them, helping them out of the hell they'd been thrown into. And then, in the far corner, I saw her, my sister. She was alive. Fragile, bruised, eyes hollow, but alive. I rushed to her, dropped to my knees, and held her as tightly as I could. She wept into my arms, whispering my name, barely able to speak. The police had found what they were looking for. And so had I. The monster was no longer untouchable. Justice was finally coming. The mansion was sealed off. The man who once roamed its halls as a grieving husband was now in handcuffs, his face splashed across every news channel. The truth was out. He wasn't cursed. He was a predator. For years, he had married vulnerable, desperate girls only to drug them, photograph them, and sell them to trafficking networks under the illusion of tragedy. He had fooled families. He had fooled society. But not anymore. Thanks to the recordings, the hidden camera, and my testimony, he couldn't deny what he'd done. The authorities uncovered an entire network. Dozens of girls were freed, hidden locations raided, buyers arrested. A system that had survived on silence was now being torn apart, one truth at a time. My sister was taken to the hospital immediately. Her condition was fragile, both physically and mentally. 2 months in captivity had stripped her of her strength, but not her spirit. With care, treatment, and time, she began to heal. Slowly, she started speaking again, started eating, started smiling. The day she returned home with me and our mother was the day I felt whole again. But we were no longer the same people. We had seen too much. The police awarded me publicly for helping dismantle a trafficking ring they had been hunting for years. The chief officer said something I'll never forget. It's not always guns that bring justice. Sometimes it's the courage to walk into darkness with your eyes open. I never took a reward. I didn't want one. My reward was that my sister was alive. She had tried to change our lives with one decision, but it cost her everything. Now we live in a quiet house, not big, not fancy, but safe. She writes poems now. I teach girls in the community about red flags, about safety, about never letting poverty force them into silence. Because monsters wear many faces, sometimes even the kindest. And if you stay silent, they win. But we didn't. We spoke, we survived, and we ended it.